Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here, and welcome to another week's episode of the Mortarpod. The Mortarpod is a weekly video podcast where I come up with a custom magic set based on video games, books, movies, all sorts of different forms of entertainment, and make a custom magic set. So this week, it's going to be a pretty cool one. If you're in my age group, you should know this one pretty well. It's actually the first time I've done a video game custom magic set. So this one is Final Fantasy II in America, Final Fantasy IV in Japan. This is my personal favorite Final Fantasy. I just happened to play it at a time in my life when it had a lot of impact on me, and I really liked the storyline, and I thought the characters were awesome. And Final Fantasy III America, 6 Japanese was an awesome game too. I'd almost argue the gameplay in Final Fantasy III was better, but the story for Final Fantasy II was just insane. That's not to say the story in 3 was bad. That was a great story too. But 2, to me, just like connected with me more. So let's dive right into it. Final Fantasy II, yeah, it's just, like a lot of Final Fantasies, you've got that same universe with black mages and white mages and warriors and dragoons and all sort of stuff like that. So this game starts you as Cecil Harvey, who is a black knight for the Kingdom of Baron. And what's cool about him is he kind of goes through a metamorphosis a little ways into the game. So because he's a black knight, he's actually incapable of defeating the darkness, the main enemy of the game that's trying to take over. So he has to become a paladin. So I wanted this card to sort of show that. And because leveling was such a big part of this game, I wanted to bring level up into this set. So there's no new mechanics in this set, but this is a revisit to level up. And I think it fits perfectly with, how much leveling you did in the game. So Cecil Harvey is Cecil the Ascended. He's a 2-black mythic human soldier creature. He's a 2/3 at level 0. And then he levels up for 1 white. And for one level 2 through 4, he becomes a 4/5 first strike. Prevent all damage Cecil the Ascended would deal to black creatures. So like him as a Black Knight, he's incapable of defeating true evil. And then at level 5+, he becomes a white creature with First Strike and Vigilance, and he has tap, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player, because he gets Cure 2 as a Paladin in the game. And he's a 7/7. So you have to be playing Black-White, which restricts him a little bit, but 2 mana 2/3s are pretty unusual in black, so that alone makes him a pretty good card if you're mono black. And if you're black white and you can turn him into a 7/7 with all those abilities, it's also pretty awesome. So not the most broken mythic, but if you're able to level him up on turn 3, which is possible with some dual lands, you can turn him into a 4/5 first strike on turn 3 attacking, which is pretty powerful. Next we have Dragoon Kane Highwind. So Kane is Cecil's buddy, and they both come from Baron. So Kane is kind of a special friend in the game in that you do in the game getting him in your final party, but at a very long period of the game you have to fight against Kane because his mind is taken over by not the main bad guy, but the second in command, Golbez. So Dragoon Kane Highwind is 2 red for a 3/2 mythic legend human soldier. He levels up for 2 red. Level 1 through 3, he becomes a 3/4 with the ability Whenever Dragoon Cane Highwind attacks, it gains hexproof until end of turn and remove it from combat. If you do, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player at end of turn. So I wanted something that would show that the Dragoons have the ability to jump, which kind of puts them out of harm's way, and then they deal massive damage in a delayed form. Just a really solid move in the game, probably one of the better moves in the game. You can dodge some nasty area effect spells that some enemies do because of his jump. Originally, I had it where he exiled himself, but somebody correctly pointed out that that would remove all his level up counters. So instead, he just attacks, he gains hexproof, you remove him from combat, and then at the end of the turn, he gets to deal his damage and power to a creature or player, which is very good. His final form at level 4+ is he becomes a 6/7, and he still has jump. So I think I'm satisfied enough with how that turned out. Yeah, the jump ability is awesome in the game, so I wanted to very much have that be on his magic card. Next we have Iridia, Caller of Monsters, and Iridia, you get her as a small child in the game, and you inadvertently kill her mom by bringing a box that the King of Baron tells you to bring to her city, her little village, which name escapes me right now, actually. Considering how much I played that game, I should know the name of her village. But it's a village of callers, and Iridia is a green and a blue. For some reason, I wanted her to be green because I felt like her ability to call the monsters is sort of a green thing. And there's actually a level up card that also, when you level it up enough, I forget what the name of it is, but it's a mono green card that spits out stuff similarly to Iridia, my card does. So she's a green and a blue for a 1/1 legendary human shaman. She levels up for 1 blue. At level 1 through 6, she gains an activated ability of a green and a blue tap. You can put a legendary 3/3 green and blue fairy creature token with flying named Sylph onto the battlefield. So that's a one of the calls that you get. And she becomes a 1/2. And then at level 7+, she becomes a 2/4, and you can pay a green and a blue and tap her, and you get to put a 8/8 red dragon creature token with flying named Bahamut onto the battlefield, which I believe is the last call that you get in the game. And yeah, I feel like this card's balanced because you can't just keep spitting the same token out because they're legendary. She's efficiently costed enough where on turn 3 you can level her up and still spit out a 3/3 flyer, which is very good. And then on turn, I believe 5 would be the earliest that you could, maybe even 6, that you could get the 8/8 flyer. So overall, I still feel like she feels mythic enough, and it evokes her abilities fairly accurately. Next, we have Tella the Sage, who's a really cool card. I really liked Tella in the game too. Kind of a weird thing about him is you get him, and he's a sage, so he has access to all forms of magic except calling. So he has white, black. He has white and black magic, and he never gets more than 90 MP because eventually he relearns Meteo. It turns out he'd forgotten how to cast Meteo, but he remembers again. But when you get Meteo, which is the strongest, it's short for Meteor, but it's the strongest spell in the game, and it actually costs 99 mana to cast. So when Tella gets the spell, you never have enough mana to use it. Even when you're gaining levels, Tella just does not accumulate mana. So Tella is America colors, red, white, and blue. He's a human wizard, mythic. He comes in at level 0 as a 1/2. He levels up for blue. Level 1 through 4, you can pay a blue and tap him, and he gets the Turn to Frog ability. So he can turn a creature. He makes a creature lose all abilities and become a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1, which was an actual spell in the game. So I felt like that worked fairly well. Although when I played Final Fantasy, I never really cast. I never really cast Frog all that much because it's not that useful of a spell and it doesn't work as much as you want it to. But since he had access to that spell, and it was kind of a shout out to the fact that Turn to Frog is already a spell and would be cool, you know, as an activated ability. So he becomes a 1/4 at that point. And then at level 5 plus, um, you can pay a blue and a red. You sacrifice Tell of the Sage, and he deals 10 damage to target player and each creature that player controls. And you can activate the ability only as a sorcery. That is supposed to eventually, spoiler alert here, but it's an old game, so it's hardly a spoiler anymore. But Tella ends up dying by casting Meteo. He casts it on Golbez. Golbez, he holds Golbez responsible for killing his daughter, as he should. And he casts Meteor on him, hoping that it'll kill him. But in the process, he knows that it'll kill himself, too. So he essentially kills himself to cast Meteor, which is what that final form of him is relating to. And we'll show you the Meteo card in a little bit here. Next, we have White Mage Rosa. So she's Cecil's girlfriend, and she's a 2 white for a legendary human cleric archer. Cool, class and race mashup, because she really is a cleric and she's an archer in the game too. So she comes in at level 0 as a 1/2. You can pay a white to level her up. Levels 1 through 5, she becomes a 2/3 reach with tap, prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to you and all creatures you control this turn. And then at level 6 plus, she becomes a 3/4 reach with tap, prevent the next 4 damage that would be dealt to you and all creatures you control this turn. So I wanted it to be level 1 through 5, she's using Cure 1 on the group, and then level 6 plus, she's using Cure 4 on the group. So hope that came across all right. Next, we have Edward's Song. Edward is a bard that you pick up in your group as the game progresses, but I didn't want to make a card for him as like a creature. I wanted him to sort of have a cool, more value card, because Edward, a few times throughout the game, ends up singing a song when he's not in your group to help you sort of overcome enemies. And Edward's Song is a green, a white, and a blue instant, and it's choose one. Untap all creatures you control. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, or tap all creatures target opponent controls. So pretty versatile card. Protects you from wrath effects. It's a combat trick potentially, since it untaps all creatures you control, and tapping all creatures target opponent controls, can tap them down for a free attack on your turn. So I felt like it's pretty versatile. It's a lot of colors, but all the effects are pretty useful. I can't imagine any of them not being useful in any given game. Okay, next we have Karate Fighter Yang, who's a really cool card. You pick him up relatively early in the game. You don't get to end the game with him, but he's definitely a cool, honorable kind of dude. He's a red and a white for a 2/2 legendary human warrior creature. He's a rare. He levels up for a red and a white. At level 1 through and 2, he's a 3/3 first strike, and then at level 3 plus, he's a 4/4 double strike. So a little bit similar to Student of Warfare, but he levels up a bit easier, or at least, I guess, on a similar path to Student of Warfare. But I feel like that's kind of how Yang was, because he kind of dual wields in the game, so double strike just sort of makes sense for him. Next we have Golbez Possessed, who is a 6 mana 4/6 mythic human wizard. He's a 4, a blue, and a black. And he has, at the beginning of your upkeep, creatures you control but don't own deal 1 damage to their owners. And then he has 4 black and a blue, and tap, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Golbez Possessed. Activate this ability only as a sorcery. So first let me explain why his name is Golbez Possessed. It actually turns out Golbez is Cecil's brother, and he's actually a good guy, but he's under the possession of Zeromus, the boss of the game. And because of that, he's your main foe. You basically fight against Golbez the entire time through. I gave him the gain control of target creature ability because he ends up mind controlling Kane, as I mentioned earlier, and forces you to fight your friend. I basically, you can keep taking creatures with him, which is a very strong ability, admittedly, but you can only use it as a sorcery, so you can't use it as like a way to steal their attacker or steal one of their their untapped guys and block an attacker. I didn't want it to be that good. It's still really good. And at the beginning of your upkeep, creatures you control but don't own deal 1 damage to their owners was a shout out to the card Enslave from I believe New Phyrexia, which was just a really strong limited card and a way for black to mind control. So I'm actually really happy with how Golbez turned out, and I feel like he'd be a bomb limited card, but he'd be a cool like EDH card too. Next, we have Twin Flare. So I didn't want to make separate cards for Palom and Porum, who are a couple children that join your group when you're becoming a paladin going to mount ordeals. So Twin Flare is a card I made for them. A special ability Palom and Porum have is they can cast a spell together, and it's random which spell you get, but one of them is Twin Flare, which I felt like was really good. So Twin Flare is 2 colorless and 3 red sorcery, and as an additional cost to cast it, you have to tap 2 red creatures you control, presumably Palom and Porum. And then Twin Flare deals 4 damage to up to 2 target creatures and or players. So for 5 mana and tapping 2 red creatures you control, you can deal 8 damage, potentially. 1 to a player maybe, and 1 to, one of their creatures. So kill a creature, deal 4 to the opponent. I feel like it's pretty good. It'd be a pretty strong card. This one is sort of based on that Avacyn Restored card, which name escapes me right now, but it lets you tap humans you control, and for each human you tap, it deals 3 damage to something. So this is similar to that. Next we have Scarmiglione, the Blighted Despot, and he's the first of the Archfiends that you fight in the game, which are basically minions of either Golbez or, I believe, Golbez. They're elemental minions of Golbez. So Scarmiglione is a 7 mana 7/7 Death Touch. This is a cycle too. I made one for each Archfiend. He's 4 and 3 black for a 7/7 Death Touch. And then he has an activated ability of 4 and 3 black tap. Target player loses life equal to twice the number of creatures he or she controls. So pretty powerful effect, definitely, but it's expensive. So as all of their abilities are, they're all 7 mana. Drops that have a 7 mana activated ability. So let's go through the rest of them. Next we have Cognazo, the Drowned King. Cognazo actually took over the true King of Baron, so he's been posing as the King of Baron, and it sort of fools you into doing evil things as Cecil when you're still a Black Knight early in the game. So Cognazo, the Drowned King, is 4 and 3 blue for a 6/8 minion creature, mythic. It has hexproof, and it has 4 and 3 blue, tap all creatures target player controls without flying. So very powerful effect. I wanted all of these effects to be very powerful. Overall, Cognazo, pretty good. He was a tough enemy to beat until you learn you just have to cast Lit 3 with Tella on him a couple times, and you take him out pretty quick. Next we have Barbaricia, Empress of the Winds. She is 4 and 3 green for a 7/7 reach minion mythic creature. And then she has 4 and 3 green tap. She deals 7 damage to each creature with flying and each player. So as you can see, a hurricane throwback on Barbaricia. She's the Empress of the Winds, so she uses a tornado and is actually capable of flight in the game, but I wanted her to be green, and I wanted her to not have flying as a green creature, but just because it's kind of out of color by these days to have flying green creatures. I understand Birds of Paradise is a green flyer, but keep in mind that was printed in alpha, so nowadays green just does not really get flyers at all. They get reach though. Finally, we have Rubicant, Autarch of Flame. And he's the last of the Archfiends that you fight, and also, in my opinion, the most difficult. He's 4 colorless, 3 red for an 8/6 haste creature, and then he has 4 and 3 red tap. He deals damage to target creature equal to that creature's power, then deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So, really strong activated ability. removal that's expensive, but definitely punishing at the same time. So I'm pretty happy with how that cycle turned out overall. They feel pretty mythic. Next we have Meteo. So like I mentioned earlier with Tella, this is essentially the same as Tella's ultimate level up activated ability. For 8 and 2 red, it's a mythic sorcery. Meteo deals 10 damage to target opponent and each creature he or she controls. And the flavor text is Wielder Beware. So Meteo, awesome spell in the game. Takes a long time to cast, but as you can see, it usually deals 9,999, which was max in that game. So I just rounded up to 10 for Magic. This would be a card I think they could print. I don't think 10 mana, 10 damage to an opponent and each creature he or she controls is broken necessarily. 10 mana is a lot of mana to get, but it would still be a very powerful effect. Next we have Edge, Heir of Eblin. So Edge is one of the guys that ends the game with you, and actually he's got a vendetta against Rubicant for killing or mutating his parents. And he comes from a ninja kingdom of Eblin. So Edge, Heir of Eblin is a blue and a red for a 2/1 legendary human ninja mythic creature. And then for a red and a blue, you can level him up. So at level 1 and 2, he's a 3/2 that can't be blocked. And then at level 3+, he becomes a 4/3 that can't be blocked. And he gains a red and a blue, discard an artifact card. And Edge, Heir of Eblin deals damage equal to the discarded card's converted mana cost to target creature or player. So that activated ability is a shout out to Edge's ability in the game, in which he can throw weapons and items at certain enemies and deal all sorts of damage. So I feel like it's certainly not overpowered, but it's still a pretty powerful activated ability in Magic. Next we have Sid's Enterprise, and it's a 6 mana legendary artifact, and creatures you control have flying. It's a rare. So the way I saw it, since blue gets Levitate for 2 and 2 blue, which does essentially the same thing, an artifact should be a little bit more expensive. So 6 mana to get the Levitate effect for any color is still really strong. Like Sid's Enterprise in a rampy green deck would be really good, in my opinion. Finally, we have Zeramus, Born of Hate. So this is the big boss of the game. And I made him a nightmare horror creature. I kind of looked up what he was and what other nightmare horror creatures looked like, and Zeramus fit the bill pretty well. So Zeramus, Born of Hate is 5 and 3 black for an 8/8 mythic nightmare horror creature. He can't be the target of black spells your opponents control. That's supposed to represent, since he in the game is Born of Hatred, that's why Cecil cannot defeat him as a Black Knight. He has to become a paladin so you can defeat Zeramus. And actually, Zeramus is incorporeal, so you can't even defeat him, or hit him rather, until you use a special crystal to basically make him corporeal and capable of being attacked. So you can't use black spells to target. You can't target him with black spells. And he has the activated ability 3 black and X, and then tap. Target opponent loses X life, and creatures that opponent controls get -X until end of turn. So I definitely wanted him as the boss of the game to have a very powerful activated ability. And the fact that you can use it at instant speed is like insane as well. But once again, boss of the game, I wanted to give him a really powerful ability. And in the game, he had an ability, I believe it's called Big Bang, and it does non-elemental damage, just massive non-elemental damage to your entire group. So I wanted his activated ability to be sort of similar to how Big Bang was to go up against. Okay, so that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this custom set, and hope you're enjoying the cube videos and cons videos. I love the comments, so good to hear from you guys. We'll see you next week.